Bună ziua, bonjour, hello to everybody. Je voudrais dire un mot juste pour vous accueillir, remercier, en roumain d'ailleurs, vreau să mulțumesc ASE pentru găzduirea acestui eveniment dialoguri europene astăzi. Sunt foarte, foarte fericit și mândru că avem această ocazie să suntem aici, în acest loc splendid. O să continuăm în engleză. It's really a very, very nice occasion, not only because we are a very good partner with the Académie des Sciences Économiques, but also because in this Aula Magna, we can really feel the history, and we are very grateful to the Academy, to the professors, and I want to congratulate them and thank them again that we can be here for one of our dialogue in the European dialogue that we are organizing those days. Without any further ado, I want to give the floor to the moderator of this debate, which is, of course, and it's no wonder, about economy here in this university. And of course, with our guest that Frédéric Martel, the Modérateur, will present to you. I want also to address a special thank to the students from Hermann Obert and their teacher that are here with us. We are very happy to have you here also, and we hope that you will be interested and you will also keep up with the program of the dialogues. Yes, I think we can start, and I wish you a very good debate. Merci beaucoup, mulțumesc frumos.
Bonjour à tous, bună ziua, domnule. Domnule, I know it's just, I try a bit of Romanian. Vorbești românești un puțin. Foarte frumos. Domnule, foarte bine. I used to be to work in this city in 1990. So a long time ago. Nobody was born, basically, at that time. And I lived here like 2 years, to 1990 to 1992. And of course, it's for me, being back, it's a very different city and different country as well. We're going to be together for 1 hour, 30 minutes, maybe 2 hours. There is no limits, we will see. You're also welcome to ask a question, to be part of the conversation whenever you want. We are going to discuss war and economics, and also commercial war, which is both the situation with Russia, but also the situation with the US. In a way, we are together on the same boat between Russia and the US. And as European, we need to find our common language and basically a common path. 3 people are joining us today. I'm going to begin by you, Antonia. You're Romanian. Antonia Colibasanu. Okay, good. She's a researcher, specialist on geopolitics and typically the future of geopolitics at SNSPA. She's also a specialist and researcher in international economic relations at the New Strategy Forum. On the other side of the table, Sylvie Matelly, she's from France. She's an economist and director of the Institut Jacques Delors, Notre Europe. And she's going to be part of the discussion, especially on geopolitics of economics. We can say she wrote a book with this title. And finally, Arthur Banga, bonjour, from Côte d'Ivoire. Is a director of a lab called Afrique de l'Ouest FIDEMO. FIDEMO, it's not necessarily a very easy name to remember. So, and we are extremely happy to have Arthur with us, also Sylvie and Antonia, of course. But I mention Arthur because, of course, he comes from West Africa, East Africa, West Africa. Sorry, it's in English, East and West are always in the other side. Why we invite guests from Côte d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast? It's because we are happy to have some way to discuss this subject from another perspective, not just between Romanian and French, but also with somebody that can be opening the discussion in other ways, and that's why we try to have people from different background and different countries. I'm going to ask you maybe a first question to all of you. I mentioned in the beginning two kind of war. I mean, even though the real war is a military war, so maybe the word war is a bit too extreme because nobody died directly, maybe indirectly, but it's not the same. I mentioned the war, economic war with Russia, and also the commercial war with the US. Would you say, and maybe I ask you, Antonia, to begin with, would you see a comparison? Would you see main differences between these two wars? They make sense together, or they make no sense at all right now?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. I am getting a bit nostalgic because this is the university that I graduated some years ago. So thank you very much for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to talk about a very important topic that I've followed during the last few years intensively. What kind of war do we have, and what does that do to our global economic system? Because being an economist, first and foremost, I take economy as the bottom and the foundation of human life and human interaction. We need to do something, therefore we pursue going and getting the resources to make that possible. And obviously the politics interfere, which is why I also do geopolitics, to understand what and where they interfere. After the pandemic, we already knew that we were in a deep transformation of the global system. And why am I starting with the pandemic? Because we are now in a destructuring world in the sense of the economic systems that we knew. Globalization, as we knew it before the pandemic, started to destructure itself. And in 2022, when we saw the first military attack on Ukraine, we also saw the first time that a global economic war kind of started by Russia no longer allowing Ukraine to use the ports. And for the first time in decades, we've seen the world's shipping routes being affected by a military attack, which later on brought in sanctions. And obviously, after the sanctions, we are also seeing how blocs, and you put it nicely and diplomatically, that we are in between, it seems to us that we are in between the US and Russia. It is for the first time that we feel like the West is no longer exactly what it used to be. And therefore, the blocs are disintegrating themselves. And it seems to us in geopolitics, we call this the world without an anchor is coming back. Meaning the global superpower is trying to detach itself from the global system, while we are also still fighting a military war in Ukraine, and while we are also seeing the outcomes of the economic conflict that started in 2022 to bite internationally into the shipping routes. And currently with Russia and China and Iran getting together militarily in a sort of a cooperation and economically in a sort of cooperation, we are also seeing another bloc evolving, including on the new shipping routes. So what does this mean? This means we have a question of what kind of trade, what kind of policy for trade and investment. And I think, this is obviously my own idea, I think that besides getting in a new geoeconomic structure, we are also getting into a sort of a strategic trade policy where national interests are dominating. And through this destructuring, which does not, I call it destructuring, by the way, because there is no objective that I'm seeing in sight. Through this destructuring, we are putting together new blocks. And that includes also our own policy in Europe with regards to others. So we are coming back to the non-West, but the very European element of what do we want to do, what is in our interest, what comes down to our national interest, what comes down to our community interest when we are talking about the European Union, which is an economic power by itself, and what kind of shipping, what kind of trade, what kind of investment, how will we use all these policies to make sure that that interest is sustained. And that's no longer free trade as we know it. It's more strategic trade. And I will end with that because I can talk forever. I'm a professor now, and I know I can bore students the way my professors bored me, some of them. So I'll end here and allow for more questions later.
Sylvie, Matelly.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really proud to be there. And as Frédéric, I went in Romania and in Bucarest at the beginning of the 90s, and while I was watching that fantastic place, I thought that at the beginning of the 90s, I was also studying economics. And at that time, and that's really interesting to remember that, while I was seated at your place, listening my professors and trying to learn economics. At that time, it was the end of the Cold War, and we thought that it was the end of the Cold War, then the end of a war, but also the end of the history. To quote someone writing a book about the end of history. And the end of history meant at that time that probably it will be the end of the war, because we will open, we will trade together, we will collaborate, cooperate, we will develop, etc., etc. And then that will be the end of the war. And why do I remember that? Because I think it is really important to understand that for an economist and for all the students here that are learning economy, we perfectly know that economic war, trade war, are lose decisions, lose policies. And in reality, this is not economics. This is only politics and strategics and the geopolitics and the ambition of people that are pretending to do military war or trade war or economic war. Is for them, this is an instrument to weaken, to divide people, countries, to improve their own power and influence. At the beginning of the war in Ukraine, I used to compare Russia and China. And can you imagine what was Russia at the beginning of the 90s and what was China? And if you have a look today, there is some failure in the strategy and the decision taken by the Russian compared to the China and Chinese people. Then that's really interesting to understand that. And that's really, well, that's really difficult to understand the consequences of such a war. I think at the beginning of the 2000s, we were talking about asymmetric war. It means that only weak people, but with a huge power to disturb, were doing war. Today we are talking about hybrid war, and we are in a world where all the instruments can be used to do a war, to destabilize, to divide people, and that's really, really, really important to take that into account and to understand the consequences it can have. Then, saying that, what can I say? I can say that we are not anymore in that world that would like to globalize, cooperate, but we have also to understand that it will have consequences for us that will go beyond only economic consequences, only strategic ones. Then we are in a world that is deciding to radically change its perspective. During decades, we negotiate together to reduce trade barriers. Today, we are in a moment where we decided to protect ourselves, to try to improve trade barriers, screening, investment screening, etc., etc. I don't know what will be the consequences, but what we can know today is that from the past, we learn that a trade war, an economic war, always led to a war and a military war. Then we have to think about that, and I think that's really important to think about that.
We finished this first introduction with Arthur, maybe on the same general question. And you know, there is a way to answer. Okay. In a radio show, we learn that very well. Whatever the question, you answer whatever you want, so don't worry.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm very happy to be a part of a panel. I would like to thank you to Institut Français, and it's my first time in Romania. It is a beautiful country. I'm very happy. I think that towards globalization is important word because the big example to mean globalization is the consequence of the war. Military wars, economic wars lead to globalization. I want to provide the African perspective in this conference. In Africa, the structure of our economies exposed the continent of a global shock because the production in Africa is for exploitation. Go to China, Europe, USA, and the consequence of the war is sowing a consumption in northern and emerging countries. So we can when you product for this country, en fait, en gros, je disais que le mot globalisation, les conséquences de la guerre sont le plus grand symbole de la globalisation. Pour nous en Afrique, par
consequence of the war is in itself a symbol of globalization.
Voilà, parce qu'on produit justement pour les économies des pays développés, des pays émergents. Et donc, quand il y a des conflits comme ça, nos populations le ressentent au quotidien. Déjà, nos économies sont bouleversées, sont détruites par...
Vous voulez le traduire en roumain, peut-être à mesure? Peut-être ça, c'est bien.
I can certainly try. O astfel de economie din cum este cea clasei de Fildeș produce pentru țări emergente și pentru țările dezvoltate și deci când se întâmplă să fie conflicte, automat avem bulversări majore în economia internă. I hope I did it correctly.
Go ahead, Arthur.
Beyond international crises, local crises disrupt our economies. Terrorism, civil war, because the agricultural production areas are deserted. The farmer go to the town. Donc ça perturbe la production, les économies aussi.
Okay, let's go ahead.
That's really interesting what Arthur said, because I thought when I explained what was the trade war, etc., I thought about the globalization and the positive aspect of that globalization for us. But that's true that we never had a real globalization and a fair globalization. And a lot of countries, mostly in the South countries, and that explain a little bit the global South, suffer from that globalization, because we use the competition to decrease the terms of trade, the prices between raw materials and industrial products, in reality to practice a sort of predation to your economy. And that's really important to remember that. And thank you very much, Arthur, to say that.
Before I follow up, I would like to suggest that you look at two key and very important images today. First of all, the big one here. Actually, we decided to have this conference here for this image, which is amazing for those who never been here. It's both, I don't know exactly if it's socialist realism with a mix of even Christian figures, and I don't know exactly what is it, but it looks like you have an idea, right? No? Yes? Go ahead.
It was made in the 30s by Cecilia Cuțescu-Storc, and it's a kind of story of the local and global trade, beginning with the old Greeks and so, and ending up with the world trade in the interwar period. This is the idea of the painting. But if I'm allowed, I would like to ask a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I was hearing you talking about the fact that nowadays we have Europe in between USA and Russia, and you were also talking about some comparison between China and Russia compared to the 90s and now, and about some mistakes that Russia has done to reach to a developing point which is not to be compared with the Chinese one. In this larger context, could one think of strategic failures that Europe itself has done across this no history period, as Fukuyama said, beginning with the 90s, in order to come to a point now when Europe is between some new emerging world power centers? And what's going to be the future of this? If so, what's going to be the future of these developings? And if not, what's...
Who wants to answer maybe the question?
Thank you.
Maybe Antonia, I speak a lot.
Antonia.
Okay. How much time do you have? Can we do it for tonight as well? I mean, this is the topic of an article, of an academic article, not an op-ed. So I will link to what you've said and also react to what Arthur said. We did not have a no history period. It seemed to us that we have no conflict. But in fact, we were looking for competitivity, we were looking for that competitive advantage, and in the process, we were also in Europe building up the common market and the economic unity. Currently, we are at the place where we have less politics and we have more economics in Europe. And this is good and bad. The good comes from the fact that we are attractive and we can impose by standards. We can impose some of the economics values, the economic values that we have in Europe, which is the political element of economics, really. But at the same time, we are vulnerable because when big blocs come together from both sides and they are pressing with trade wars, trade conflict, I will correct myself. A war is a strong word, as you pointed out in the beginning. So we have trade conflict and economic wars. But even trade conflicts, when we are talking about policies and investment policies that tie into trade, we basically have to deal with the outside markets. And we are not used to conquer. We are used to be attractive. We are used to impose standards for those that come into our market. We have not gone for other markets to conquer other markets, which is where we are vulnerable because we have no idea how to do that together. And I think this is going to be our major challenge, to understand that we are in the same boat, that we are together in the economic process of holding the competitiveness together and go after cooperation with others on our terms. This is going to be the challenge. So not learning how to conquer in a positive way is one of the bad things that I believe was done, not necessarily thinking about it, during the time when we thought we have no conflicts and it's enough to be attractive. This is my short answer. My long answer could take forever, and I don't want to do that.
A second question for all three of you. We discuss, just as an introduction, war, economy, and trade conflicts. And we can, of course, go on and on about what do we mean exactly by these two terms, what are exactly the conflicts and which who. But immediately to go a bit further to describe the pictures, a very simple question. Given that situation that we can again analyze, and we might go back later on that, does Europe is the solution? Maybe with Sylvie this time.
And thank you very much, Frédéric. As you notice, I am the director of the Jacques Delors Institute. That I can't.
And the answer is yes.
I can't answer no. That's impossible. But clearly, even if I have to answer yes, I will say that could be and that have to be. And if you have a look to our history, what we have done in Europe with all the imperfection it had is a miracle compared to the history of the rest of the world and the history in general. We have achieved to manage and to solve all our conflicts, economic, trade, but other conflicts, cultural ones, etc., by negotiating together. But if you have a look about the comments we usually do about that method, they are always negative. That takes so many time. We never agree about anything, etc., etc. At the end, even if it takes so many time, at the end we have a single market. For some countries, a single currency. I remember when I answer my first question, I remember the beginning of the 90s, and I was also in an Erasmus in Spain. And Europe and people in Europe were so different and living so differently from one part of Europe than the other. Today, when you travel in Europe, you feel at home. You feel at home because we are living the same. We are sharing the same objective in our lives, etc., etc., then I think that could be the solution. But saying that, I also see how difficult it is to accept that, because a solution, when it is a good solution, it is always much more complicated than a bad decision. Because a good solution, a common, a collective good solution needs always concession, needs always arbitration, etc., etc. Then it takes time. It isn't exactly the decision you will take if you will be alone, etc., etc. Then yes, it is difficult, but clearly, at the end, if we have a look behind, can we say, one of my colleagues last week asked that question, and I think that's a really interesting question. Do you think it would have been better without Europe, without that collective decision, without the market integration and the single market, without Erasmus, without etc., etc.? And that's really interesting to reverse the question, because clearly...
But a lot of people answer it would be better. That's the reason of the vote in Poland, for one part in Romania, for one part in Hungary, in Slovakia.
Sure. I'm not sure, because if you have a look to Eurobarometers, since 5 years, I would say since 2019, clearly more and more people are convinced that Europe is the solution. But paradoxically, when we vote reversely and we vote against Europe.
But why is that then?
Why is that?
Who does the mistake?
This is because we are in a perspective when we just have a look to what doesn't work. And there is a lot of things that doesn't work, and we have to see what doesn't work, and we have to try to find answer to that. But globally, I'm not sure that people, and that's particularly interesting in France, for example. A lot of farmers today vote for the Rassemblement National, the party against Europe and European integration. But at the end, that's the part of the people in France that are the most pro-Europe and pro-
and finance also by Europe.
Yeah, and finance and funded by Europe. Then there is something in the narrative and also something in the policies, not always European policies, but sometimes national policies too, that has in contradiction with some European policies that don't work, and we have to think about that. But I'm not sure that a lot of people want to leave Europe. Just have a look to the Brexit.
But they did.
Yeah, they
Antonia and then Arthur. Antonia.
I have to have a reaction to that because the vote in Romania was mentioned. So I'm a Romanian, therefore I have to say something, right? I don't think it is Europe that people vote against, especially in the countries of Eastern Europe. It is the bad administration and what they perceive to be not done well by the local politicians. And this is proven by the Eurobarometers. I mean, the Romanians are looking up to the European Union in a way of searching the values and needing to implement those values into local politics. The vote is not against Europe, it is against the political class that they no longer see as effective as it should be, considering that we are a European Union member. So it's a paradox. We got into Europe. We got integrated into the European Union for the benefits, and we see the local politicians not helping us achieve those benefits. It's more about, okay, we want to thrive. We want to really benefit from being part of this club. We know we can do it, but it is you guys that don't help us. And it is that reaction to the local politicians that make us not well. Now, I know and I understand that in Western Europe, we have other kind of problems which do not necessarily link with the idea of being integrated and benefiting from the EU per se. But there too, there is not necessarily a vote against Europe, at least the way I perceive it, but a vote into the effectiveness of the politicians to deal with the problems that the EU is confronting with.
No, I got the point, but not even speaking about Romania, but more generally from Poland to East Germany or Slovakia. I mean, a lot of the politicians, and I don't want to personalize, are former hooligans, corrupt people, pro-Putin or whatever, and you think people vote for them because they want better politicians? How can you explain that to me?
They are hooligans, there are non-politicians as the standard politicians. I will totally agree with you.
You mean like Trump in a way? Or
It's the populist manners that are working now. It is also a nostalgia for the past when things were done well. It is also the idea that
before 1990, you mean?
Before 1990, which has nothing to do with the current EU. So it's kind of, it's a weird case in politics when we know that we can benefit from the EU, but at the same time we are thinking that things should be better organized and therefore a strong hand would make that happen. And someone who speaks the loudest kind of is seen as a strong hand, which is not the case, but whatever.
Okay. Good luck, donc.
It's an attempt to explain the weirdness. So take this as, a very personal explanation on the weirdness.
Arthur now, and just to finish about my two images, because I had no time to finish. The big one was the pictures, that is liberal realism. And the second one is very small. It's a bow tie that is matching the jacket. So you should look at that. Arthur.
Thank you. But beyond Europe, we think that a multilateralism is a solution, because the war in Europe have consequences to Africa and the world. For example, the Ukraine invasion has increased energy costs and impacted the price of fertilizer in Africa. Second is the perception. Many people in Africa agree with Putin, because if you limit the solution in Europe, you think that it is the war Europe versus the world. So the solution is not limited to Europe. Cooperation is the world, and multilateralism, and exchange with our young Africa come to study in Europe, and Europe come to study in Africa. It is the perception for a large, comment je sais, une plus grande image du conflit. A big conflict is a world conflict, not a European conflict. If you think Europe, you feed the bad perception of Europe in Africa. It is the language of Putin when he speaks about the conflict, the invasion of Ukraine. So don't limit the solution on Europe.
Another question about the global economy and the current situation for mainly for the economists here, Sylvie and Antonia, and you can also react to that. How do you analyze, describe what's going on? Are we in the beginning of a restructuration, or is it more like a destructuration? Is it like a new page? Is it just adjustment and readjustment? How would you define that moment?
Well, if you restructure something, it means that you have something in mind. You are having a goal towards which you are working to make things better. So right now in the global system, we do not see that goal. We don't have a goal towards we are going. And I'm not talking about we as a multilateral system, global economic system, but we even as countries, as middle powers and as great powers. there is no particular goal that we perceive, the economists this times, to be on the map of these countries. Therefore, we are basically in a phase where we are destructuring. Now, that doesn't mean that we do not have projects with clear objectives. So, for instance, I mentioned earlier China, Iran, and Russia, which is a sort of a network that is forming around economic projects. We have the North-South corridor, for instance, that is being put together by these three countries as an alternative to other corridors that were basically used and are still used, I should say, including the Black Sea and so on. But what does this mean? Even the Arctic corridor is being sort of posted to be more and more important by Russia and China because of their need to decouple. And it's weird that we are talking about them wanting to do that as a reaction to what we were seeing as de-risking and decoupling from the West before even the pandemic started. So in a way, they are catching up, and in another way, they are trying to maintain their economic objectives while the destructuring is taking place at the global level. Now, what are we doing? Because as much as I would care to talk about Russia and China and Iran and other powers, I live in Europe. I live in Romania. So what are we doing? Now, we also have an objective, which is very much written out loud, discussed, which has to do with economic integration and societal integration. I was looking at the title, and it is Security and Society. Now, when we are talking about economics, we are talking about the society. Now, how this integration takes place and what kind of positive effects does this have in the current global system when we see conflict? What are we showing, in other words? What kind of positive elements are we able to show the world and our enemies, first and foremost, our competitors, that works for us sustaining our value and our prosperity? Let's not forget that the European Union was founded on the idea that prosperity would bring peace. Now we're at a point where we do not necessarily have prosperity, but we have to build prosperity. We still have peace in Europe. However, we are challenged by Russia. So that fragile peace that we have in the European Union, not Europe, I'm correcting myself, okay, is being challenged by a war that is next door. So if I'm challenging myself now, and you may say, well, okay, you were asking the questions, but do you have any solutions to this? Have you thought it through? Yes, I have some. Integration and the same element of corridors. We still have work to do in linking the West with the East, when I'm talking about the Western Europe with Eastern Europe. The Danube is a very practical project that I think we have the opportunity to develop, because currently Russia is no longer on the so-called Danube Commission. It was kicked out considering the lovely actions that it pursued since 2022. So even the Serbs realized that Russia is a bad actor, which is good. We have the opportunity to seek economic integration and societal integration with the Western Balkans. Step by step, it's been a slow process. I know you all are going to say, well, let's talk about institutions, let's talk about, sure, let's talk about everything about democracy. I'm with you. I think we still need to build democracy in European Union per se. Don't get me wrong, considering votes and all of that sort of thing. But economics is important because it gives the feel of building prosperity, and that is at the core of the European Union progress. So working with new corridors, working with outside neighboring countries to build bridges is something that the European Union still can do. Working on bridging our standards to values in the sense that Arthur mentioned earlier. Fight back the Russian influence in Africa by showing the positive results that African countries, Latin American countries, Southeast East Asian countries may have in working with the European Union, not only by accessing the market, not only by getting their products on the market, but also because these standards are the standards that we have are going to help them, and showing them how that works is something of economic diplomacy that we can actually pursue. So these are the three elements. Again, I'm trying to be short.
Sylvie?
Thank you. I'm really sorry, but I often tell my life story to answer questions. But this is not to talk about myself. This is because every time I have a question or someone asks me a question, I need to confront the question with my daily life and with some personal experience. And I will tell you, a few years before, I was contacted by a professor of economics who was one of my friends when I was student in economics. And he told me, Sylvie, I would really like to write a paper with you about globalization. And I need to tell, that's important for the story and to understand the story, I need to tell you that it was a Marxist economist and he was convinced that it was the end of the globalization. And I told him, okay, I really like you and really like to discuss with you, then I can and I would like to write that paper with you. But as I am I am more, I prefer to have a look to the real economy and to statistics. And I can tell you this is not the end of globalization. Something is changing in globalization, that's clear, but this is not the end of globalization. That maybe we can discuss together and try to write that paper. At the end, it wasn't a paper, it was a file with 10 papers from a lot of, from 10 people. And I chose to write the paper about scarcity because as he was student with me, I remember my first course of economics. And the first thing you learn when you learn economics is that everything is scarce in that world. Scarcity is the basis of economy. And this is because our needs are infinite, but the resources in that world is scarce. Then we need the market, then we need to negotiate, then we need economy. And I thought about that paper, thinking about globalization, because if you have a look to globalization during the 90s, the specificity of that globalization was that for the first time, because of China and the unlimited capabilities of China to produce everything, we were in a world where scarcity didn't exist anymore. And when I wrote that paper about scarcity, it was, are we coming back to a normal world where resources are scarce? And my answer was yes. Why? Because we are in a period, the energy transition, where we need to change our way to produce goods in few years, going from fossil energy, going from fossil energy to renewable energy. Then for that, we will need, at the same time, in a short period, we need the same kind of natural resources. And that natural resources are, by definition, scarce. Then we will have confrontation from that. That's inevitable. In the same time, We are in a world where, because of globalization, a lot of countries had emerged and are now, and China is the most powerful country in that case, and new competitors, new powerful countries appears in international relationship. And in that world, we can see that we are in a competition between China and the US. Then yes, clearly to answer your question, I think we have entered in a world where competition and hard competition, not only economic competition, hard competition, economic war, trade conflicts, military wars, etc., will be more frequent than previously. Hope we will find a way to solve that situation. What have we done after the Second World War? We have found a way to negotiate together, to find a way to solve our conflict, our differences, while talking together. But currently, clearly, we are entering in a new world, probably with more conflict than before, because of all that aspects. Thank you.
Arthur?
Competition is a good word for the situation. Because yesterday in Africa, we have the actors is USA, Europe, but today we have many actors. For example, China, India, Turkey, and the actor is many categories: political, economical, war. For example, in West Africa, Russia take Mali, Burkina, Niger. It is the country who speak French. But today, Russia is here. And in economics, China is the first partner of Africa today. So it is a new moment with many actors in Africa. For Europe, it's not the end. It is opportunity. If Europe adapts our policies and the situation, because Africa, the people is happy for this situation. It's very happy to can to change with Europe, China, Russia, USA. It's opportunity for African countries. So Europe can to adapt on the situation.
We have a lot of time, but maybe I would like to open the floor and ask whether one to ask a simple question, a complicated one, or even a remark, or whatever you would like to address. You can even speak about rock or wokism, like last night. Who wanna begin? We have students, so the student, they need to, all of you have to prepare a question. I will ask a few of you directly later. Who want to begin? If we stay on the subject of war, economy, and trade conflicts, and toward the new free trade or the end of the free trade.
So if there is
Jean-Élie Malkin
who should start, I will start. So I have two questions. I have two questions. First question is, in 2004, Poland integrated European Union. In 2007, Romania integrated. At this time, there were a lot of reluctance from the other member of the European Union saying, oh, how we can integrate this kind of country, they are so poor, there will be this completely instability in terms of economics and so on. So very often the economics is not opposed to politics, but now we have to deal with politics and economics. My question is following what I was saying this morning at the session. You are, when I say you, it's Romania, it's the former Eastern country from Eastern Europe which integrated to European Union. Now, politically, I think, and I am not the only one who thinks this way, integration of Ukraine, the process of integration Ukraine-European Union, it's of very political importance, and if we want to save this country, I mean, this is one of the ways to do this. But on the other hand, you have a lot of people saying that, no, we don't want it, because it will be a big instability in a lot of fields and agriculture and so on. And the peasants from Western Europe, even the Romanian one or the Polish one, they don't want to see this instability coming, and they are against. So what is the solution to make more coherent and in synergy the political issue and the economical issue? This is my first question. And if you allow me, I have one comment for Africa. But it's just because I know quite well this continent as well, especially Western Africa. Let's away Burkina, Niger, and Mali. It's for political reasons. It's after colonization. It's a kind of ideological issue that now they have this partnership with Russia. I will speak about the other country like Ivory Coast, which is a leader from the economic perspective in Western Africa. So you say that, of course, China is one of the most important partners. The partnership of China, and you know that better than me, it's not. It could be seen as a partnership, but it's not exactly a partnership. China, they want to return to investment. And they want to return to investment. I saw a lot of development activities or initiatives in Africa with Chinese workers coming in Africa instead of employees, African employees. They have their own employees. This is not the way of a win-win cooperation. So there's a lot of things of criticism. Europe is seen, I mean, for French and for England and for some other countries, former colonizers. I don't know what. So the new paradigm. The new paradigm for me in Africa, as you mentioned, is to influence the Africans themselves to develop this culture of initiative and development, rather than to substitute or just to invest in order to have the return on investment, I mean.
Who want to react to that? Maybe we begin by Arthur, because there is some. Go ahead.
Okay, I agree. It's not the solution is not China for France and France for China. In Africa, the question is our Africa beneficiaries. Benefits of the multi-actors. We have a choice today. Yesterday, you have not a choice. It's only in Côte d'Ivoire, is only France, USA. Today, we are a choice. And Africa, France or China or India. But you must to take that opportunity. I agree with you in this situation.
It was about enlargement. We at the Institute, we published in January a study we did for the European Parliament about the cost of enlargement, and we begin regarding what had cost the previous ones. And in reality, what we've seen is that we decided in Europe, and the members, the European members, decided what they would like to pay for enlargement. It's wrong to think that it costs a lot. In reality, it wasn't the case. Well, in the long term, it clearly wasn't the case. But even the price we pay to support that countries to achieve all the objective and all the elements they have to perform to enter the. There is a price to pay when you try to limit as you can the investment and the support you will give to that countries, because it stay at the end differences that create misunderstanding between old members and new ones, and that may have consequences in the long term. And that's really important to think about this, and to think the process, the integration process, in a long-term basis, taking into account what we have known during the previous enlargement. I think no one would say today that we were wrong in the 90s to think that we need to integrate Eastern countries in Europe. Because at the end, that's better for everyone, Western and Eastern countries, to be together in that European Union. And that's really important. And what was really interesting in that conclusion of the study is that when my colleagues present the study to the European parliaments, all the moderate people, all the moderate deputies told them, oh, please, please, don't talk about the cost of enlargement. That's not politically correct. And the only one that asked the good questions and that say, well, we have to talk, we have to debate about that, were the anti-European parties. And that's really interesting, and that was really interrogating for us, to see that the only people that would like to debate what is good, what is wrong, are the ones that are against the European Union in reality. I think that's really important to accept the fact that that's our future, that the future of all European citizens, then we have to discuss about and to decide together about that.
Antonia Colibasanu.
I just want not to react to this. I was speaking specifically about the situation we are facing now, not in 2 years, in 10 years of the process of enlargement. I'm speaking about the situation due to the war in Ukraine. So this is a political component of the decision. This is a political component of advocacy. This is a political component we should overload in order, but there will be economical consequences. That's why I want to highlight it. But this is, first of all, for me, it's a political decision.
And just one word to answer what you say, what you said. That's not all white or all black. A few months before, the main discourse in Brussels was, well, it will be really difficult to integrate Ukraine, then maybe we will take time. And now, because of Trump, the main discourse in Brussels is, well, we have to integrate really quickly Ukraine, because that's the only country that is able to do war and to be against Russia and to protect us from Russia. I think that kind of mindset, one day black and the other day white, is terrible, because a political decision is not white or black. It is between both.
Antonia Colibasanu.
I'll take the political scientist hat to respond that one. And I will go back into the history of the EU. You are very right. It is a political decision that we will do if we are ever going to decide to fully integrate Ukraine or any other country. Okay? Now, bear with me for 2 minutes. The European community, and later the European Union, was a political project. It came as a peace project that was paid for in the West by the US and Western European countries after World War II to basically make sure there is no war in Europe. Prosperity won the Cold War, primarily for the US as the major global superpower, but also for the Western Europeans. And that was the moment that the peace project was transformed into a prosperity project. Why do I say that? The Eastern Europeans were seduced by the idea that the Western Europe has a promise, the promise of a better life. Even some Russians were seduced by that, and hence we had Putin in the 2000s. But I won't go there yet. So that seduction meant that the Eastern European countries, the population, wished to be a part of that wonderful life story. It was a better life story that they wanted to be part of. Not European norms, not the anti-corruption fight, not a better fiscal policy, not sustainability policies or green policies or whatever. No, a better life, that was all. For the Western Europeans, they were thinking about a good market, a better, not so developed market where I can sell my products and where I can go influence for my own benefit. So the prosperity project. And this is how we will all grow together. Only that, it happens in fairy tales. It doesn't really happen in reality. So right now we are at a point where we are dealing with war. We have a war in Ukraine. And the question is, are we in the prosperity project, or are we back to ground zero in the peace project? Because the political reaction is going to be very different. The prosperity project is about the reconstruction project. And the reconstruction project has an economic dimension, which goes into, oh, that's great. Construction companies, whatever, I don't know, companies, servicing companies for the construction companies, whatever, port, infrastructure, you name it. Plus the service economy that goes, the consumption economy. All that stuff that the Ukrainians are lacking right now, go in there and we make a profit. And this is for the French companies, for the German companies, for the Romanian companies, for the Polish company, it's profit. We're going after the reconstruction project. Now, the same reconstruction project has a political dimension and a societal dimension. Societal buildup, conflict resolution. We are dealing with a country that is going to have to be rebuilt in the societal sense. They are right now wounded. We are dealing with soldiers that have been teenagers before being soldiers. We are dealing with security risks that we don't necessarily want to even discuss. Post-trauma, whatever is there. So, and this is bordering Europe. This is going to affect our security whether we want it or not. And this is an incredible cost. It is larger than the cost of accepting us cutting the funds for agriculture policy and giving some to Ukraine, which I fully agree, it is going to be a big cost. The problem is, how are we going to deal with the security problems on our borders while also building up the economy to be able to have the common funds for sectors? Because my question is, what kind of international trade, what kind of international investment, what kind of place in the world for the European Union, depending on this question? Are we dealing with a peace project and then we have to spend? By the way, the US is not going to spend with us. So whatever security risk is going to arise at our border, I don't think that the US is willing to help us with anything. They are going, however, for the prosperity project, as is China. They are going for the reconstruction project where they have to gain. So they don't want the political ties. They don't want the societal ties. We don't want them either. I mean, I'm a Romanian. Do I want to be faced with the security risk at the border, where with a country that has been traumatized by military war? No, I don't. I really don't. because I understand that means weapons being free on the market. I understand that means a lapse of all sorts of educational matters. So, no, thank you. But do I have a chance? Maybe we do, but that's not for me to answer. It's for the politicians, ultimately.
Other question in the room? Madame, Monsieur, Monsieur. Oh, we begin with you because you're closer. Thank you. Give us your name and
Yes,
where you come from.
My name is Adrian Pistalu, and I'm a student here at Herman Oberth. And I took some notes on my phone regarding this discussion. So I wanted to ask, well, before my question, I wanted to say, since the war in Ukraine, many EU countries have reduced their imports of Russian gas and oil, which, from what I heard, caused shortages and price spikes, or disagreed on how to share energy resources or to support each other. And this leads to my question: how has the ongoing war in Ukraine intensified economic conflicts within the European Union, particularly regarding energy policy and defense spending? Thank you.
Who wanna address that question? Arthur, you are behind the time with the two other women, so I suggest you take over the floor. No, I told you, you answer whatever you want, whatever is the question.
Yes. Je crois qu'on a répondu toutes les questions d'abord, c'est pour ça que j'avais la tête sur quelque chose. Okay. In Africa, the consequence is energy. Many countries import fossil energy. So after the invasion, after the invasion, you have increased energy cost in our country. So the state are taking a measure to resist. For example, price riser, tax exemption for protect the consumption in our country. But it's very, very difficult because we are a power country.
Maybe on the same question, that was very well articulated, Sylvie, Antonia,
Yes.
and then two more questions there.
If I understood well the question was...
You didn't listen then because it was clear.
That what was, does the war in Ukraine increase conflicts in Europe? Is it that? I would say not really in reality, because we support together, and for a long time. In February 2022, I wouldn't have thought that after months of wars, we will still behind Ukraine. And concerning energy, we were a little bit naive to import so many energy from Russia, even after the invasion of Crimea in 2014. And we paid the price of that naivety. I don't know if it's the word naivety, at the beginning of the war. But at the end, we reform our energy market. We find a way to collaborate together to pass successfully that crisis. And the price of energy, we never had a lack of energies. And after a few months, I think it was in July 2022, while the price of gas begin to decrease, and that was it was 2023. It was 1 year before, 1 year after. Concerning military spending and concerning our defense, yeah, that's a huge issue. We are rearming because we need to rearm, because that war wake up us, and that can create new risk. That clear. And as I am defense economist, ask me that question every day. Everything I try to write something about the need to rearm in Europe. I always think about the consequences it can have on the good side of that is that we are taken our destiny, our security together in charge. But the bad side of that is that we are in an arms race with Russia or the US. We don't exactly know. When you heard some people, even deputy at the European Parliament in Brussels, sometime I think that we are rearming in an arms race with the US. Why? I don't know, but it seems to be. Then that's really interesting as a question, but I'm not sure to have an answer for you, sorry.
Thank you for the question, Adrien. This woman there, in the middle.
I'm Maïsa Shelba. I'm 20 and I come from France. So I have a question on another topic. It's about the trade deal between the European Union and Israel. In the situation that we know, I want to know how to deal with geopolitical issues such as the huge influence of USA in the region and human rights and international law, which are a very important topic for the Union in the ideology of the Union, because the lack of actions questions her credibility with, which, by the way, is instrumentalized by China and Russia. Thank you.
There is another question. We take two questions. Mr. I think on the top there. Yes, there, behind with a nice tie, blue tie.
Thank you very much for your speeches so far. They've been very informative. My question is bouncing back a bit on the economical aspects and the trade aspects of the war in Europe, especially the war in Ukraine. Given that the EU has recently banned imports of fertilizer from Belarus and Russia towards European farmers, what can the EU do to appease said farmers that have already shown severe frustrations with the way the common agricultural policy has been handled? And what can the EU do to balance trade with countries already struggling with very high import prices, especially related to agricultural prices? Because one of our colleagues already has addressed the energetic side of struggling imports.
Maybe a third question in the room. I saw somebody else. Who else? Miss the other guy, close. Thank you.
So going back to the topic of the war on Ukraine, we have seen the front line moving, admittedly in favor of Russia, but moving slower and slower to the last couple of months. And many factors indicate a possible correlation with Russia's failing war economy. So does that suggest that all we need to do is to keep pumping money into Ukraine until Russia's offensive blows up by itself?
Okay. Who wanna answer any of the question? Let's begin with Sylvie.
Yeah, maybe I will answer to the two first questions that are questions about sanctions in reality. Are we legitimate to use sanctions and economic instruments, economic tools to punish countries and political leaders that don't respect international law? That's a huge question. Clearly, that's a huge question. And I don't want to put in my answer any emotion, any moral issues, even if I feel a lot of emotions concerning the situation in Gaza or in Ukraine, clearly. That's a huge question. That's a huge question because, well, you know, concerning sanctions, we have seen, I think we couldn't continue to trade with a country and in the same time support another one to fight against that country. But in the same time, we can see how we are perceived by countries that are not useful to punish other ones. But saying that, and in the same time, and you can see how difficult it is to answer that question. In the same time, what can we do to improve the respect of international law? And that's the only question. That's not answers to your questions. And I don't directly answer to you or to you, but that's always the topic of our panel. Can we answer to conflict by other conflicts or not? Do we have to do it? Maybe yes, maybe no. The whole situation is specific, and answer is very difficult to give. And the good answer could be the good answer at one time, but not the good one few minutes after. And that's really, really, really difficult. And in the same time, at the end, you have people that are dying because we did and we do nothing. That's clear.
Maybe Antonia, but just before to answer a bit the question is also always who is going to decide. You might have an idea, this one might have another idea, this woman another idea. At the end, it's not the expert or journalist or whoever. It has to be decided either by a parliament in the country or by European Union and so on and so forth. And then we have a lot of problem because you discuss, and I don't want to enter, and actually it's not the debate today to enter in the debate of Gaza or whatever, but of course you can say a lot of things about Gaza, but then you will say don't do trade with India because of Modi actually killing also, some people say that, Muslim people. And then you have, a lot of Muslim people, more than 100,000 have been killed also in Egypt. So we don't trade with Egypt. And then China, or we don't trade in China. By the way, you didn't mention the fact that a lot of Muslims are killed also in China, especially Uyghur, and so on and so forth. And then we are just you and me, France and Romania and a few countries, and we don't trade with anyone else in the world. I'm not against human rights. I was even in the side with this guy of, being in favor of human rights in diplomacy, but it's true that we are not going to stop to trade to China or to India or to Hungary or whatever, just because there is some human rights issue, and that's probably a shame, but that's also what probably our people want. Yes, I will give you the floor immediately. The other question, but we might go back on that, it's we discussed a lot Russia, the US, China, but we also know that there is this kind of middle size. They are very big country, but other kind of big country like India, Brazil, Vietnam, Indonesia, and so on, that are probably key player in the game. And by the way, President Macron was in Vietnam, Singapore, and Indonesia last week, so that's probably not just by accident. Maybe Arthur?
I would like about a sanction international law, the perception. In West Africa, CEDEAO is the organization of West Africa, put a sanction of Burkina, Niger, Mali with a putsch. It is a law of organization, but people is not agree. People say it is the sanction for against the people. So the perception of a sanction is not good.
But who are the people you are mentioning?
Not understand.
Who are the people you are mentioning?
Inside
where? Inside the
ECOWAS.
ECOWAS.
Yes.
Yes,
but there is again.
Okay. And for international law, in Africa, we make a comparison. A comparison of Ukraine situation and Gaza situation. You say, yes, okay, international law is good for European, It's not good for African, ASEAN, Palestine. It's a big discussion in Africa today. How you perceive the international law and the application.
Monsieur in pink. Thank you.
Thank you, Monsieur in dark blue. All right, question.
Pink and blue.
Yeah, it's good fit. Anyway, question for Sylvie. Sylvie, you qualified the kind of formal, let's say, relationship of Europe towards Russia as naivety. Why don't we call it properly Pharisaism, from Pharisee? Yeah, you know, the Pharisee in the Bible, in the Old Testament. You got it, yeah?
Did you get the question?
Because I have tried to keep a sort of diplomatic voice, no?
Be so diplomatic. Let's be straight.
Another question in the room. Who wants to... I mean, it's a free country, a free university, and a free floor. Go ahead, please. Don't leave me alone. I have a lot of questions if needed, but it's better if you take part of the discussion. Maybe you can answer, I mean, just discuss what I said about the middle size, which are not at all middle-sized country, like India, Vietnam, Brazil, Indonesia. For Europe, as do you see some opportunities going, you know, and actually I like what you said about Africa. I mean, Africa, we don't want to choose. We want to have many partnerships. And actually nobody will disagree with that. I mean, we do that also. And actually Brazil and Mexico, they also do that. The question is sometimes that they say that being very mean against France or UK or whatever. But about the middle size, maybe Antonia?
So realistically, and I will say that, you know, I've been educated and believed in global trade, global free and fair trade. Yeah, in the 90s and early 2000s, that was still a thing. We were all hoping that we would have you know, the free world where individuals will matter more than states or companies. And that was a good thing to believe. Only that, again, we are going into fairy tale territory. So back to geopolitics. Perceptions matter as much as they shape politics. There was one question raised about Russia and what we do with Russia and Ukraine, and that ties into your question with middle powers. In geopolitics, we talk about geopolitical nodes where everything comes together in peacetime. In those times that I lived and was educated in free and fair trade, and prosperity comes, and you know, international trade is bringing benefits. Or during conflict, you have really bad times. The geopolitical node that I'm referring to is the Black Sea, and the second geopolitical node that I'm referring to is the South China Sea. And we are now, if we look at realistically at what happens with Russia, we are in an economic war that has a global economic war that has begun before a global military war, and hopefully we will not have a global military war. Why? Because economic sanctions are meant for long term, and because Russia cutting off shipping lines was an act of war as well. So basically, we don't have a trade conflict with Russia. We have an economic war. We have a trade conflict with China that has begun before the pandemic and is conducted now more aggressively by the US, somewhat aggressively by the EU. We have some functions in place and some policies in place against China. And we are also looking at how to react to China going together with Russia. In that sense, we, the West, we are looking to see who our allies might be. We talked about destructuring. Well, We cannot just do destructuring and be passive. We also have to build up, and we also have to think about what comes next after destructuring. And it is the global south that we are after, but guess what? We are not the only ones that we are after. It is the middle powers that we are after, but guess what? BRICS. It still exists, it's still a thing. So in that sense, we need to move fast. And I was asked the other day by someone in Romania, why is it that France went to visit these countries in the Southeastern Asia? It doesn't really make sense because, you know, Europe, we're concerned with Europe. It's not the first time that France does that, and it's the thing that France is a not only European power, because you also have territories in the Pacific and Indian Ocean, should do.
And a long history with Vietnam, especially
which is a francophone country.
Indochina, yes.
Which is a francophone country and is important in the region to win, especially considering the very troubling relationship between China, US, and Russia in the region. Russia has become an important competitor in Southeast Asia with regards to energy, with regards to investment in critical infrastructure, together with China. So we no longer, you know, I've said that we are living in a world that is restructuring and we see new blocks appearing, but at the same time, these blocks are very much interconnected with each other. So the more we go out there, we as Europe, we as European powers, the more and the better we are considering the bigger chess play that is taking place at the global level. And this goes for economic interconnections, this goes for military interconnections, which, by the way, for Europe, it kind of goes hand in hand, because if the US is not going to help us with Ukraine reconstruction, guess what? We are also going to have to help ourselves with that rearm Europe to actually make it faster in practice. And how do we do that? Well, economically, that's a challenge, also because we wanted to go green. It ties into the energy policies. Also because we kind of, you know, we're, how do I say this in a I don't really have to be diplomatic, right? It's an academic setting. We were not necessarily very pushy into getting competitive on the military side of things. And with the middle powers, with their help, considering there are still emergent countries, we can both learn and teach. And on military deals, this helps us for economics of scale, scale economies. Did I say it right? Scale economies. That's scale economies, which means it's getting cheaper to produce while you are having a network of alliances that is getting what you produce. So there is that aspect. Politically, it makes sense because we are cutting into BRICS. We are cutting into everything that our competitors are doing with regards to the global south. And that is important because politics are shaped by perceptions. The reason we have all these question marks about international law and human rights and all of that is because we are very interconnected politically at the global level right now. We know what's going on, and we think critically about what's going on. We as, you know, the normal people, the normal human beings. So while we establish alliances, we have the chance to build that political resonance for establishing or reforming or reassessing or implementing international law the way we think should be, through alliances. Now, is this going to be an easy process? Of course not. But we are dragged into this by middle powers So we need to see what other middle powers, meaning Russia, China, Iran, North Korea is a small player, but it is there. So we need to find middle powers to work with, because we're not a superpower in Europe. We're also a middle player. We are discovering that we can be a geopolitical player. We wanted to be that geopolitical power, so we are still discovering that. I thought that we are, but whatever, politically, we are still discovering. So we need to play. I don't know if I answered that question, but I tried to be sequential on the three layers: economics, military, and politics.
Merci, thank you. Maybe two last questions and then we conclude. Madame, là-bas, monsieur ici. On prend les trois questions.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Alexandra Crăciun, and I want to follow up with Miss Colibasanu, what she just mentioned now.
Antonia.
Yes, I refer by the family name as per Romanian rules.
Oh my God.
So I represent the experts from the civil society, let's say. I've been working for 15 years in development, humanitarian field, and civil society in Romania and the Middle East. And I've just figured, and following your discussion now, I found out that we are now receivers in the new European Commission Black Sea documentation strategy, that we are part of the gateway for the new routes, right? And my question, maybe not only to you, but to everyone in the room, how can we solidify Romania's position, not only politically, but also from the university perspective, from the civil society perspective, from the private sector perspective, in the new era that is coming, because we are at the gateway of the Black Sea. We are on the Danube. How can we solidify the position rather than just being a receiver or a partner, but more as a leading figure? Thank you.
Maybe the last question, Mr. here. And
Hello, I'm Voico Alexandru, student at the University of International Business and Economics. And this one is for Madame Antonia. I would like to return to your hypothesis launched by your political analysis. I don't think that people voted in Russia for Putin or in Romania for Georgescu because they promised a better life, but because they based their ideology in traditional values. Taking this into account, don't you believe that this crisis with nationalistic politics in Eastern Europe might have inadvertently been caused by the EU through its social revolution, dominated by diversity politics, if I may call it that?
You can call it woke. That's okay.
Go ahead. It was for you.
No, I was challenged. It's okay. The better life that we were looking for, when I said the better life, I said about integration in the EU. We were looking at the end of the Cold War, which is in the 90s, which is probably not when you were around here. We were looking towards the West as to the better life that they were having, and we were not. Now, going back to the present times, I agree with you. So, as a former student of the very same faculty, I am happy to say that, yes, I do agree with you. Some of the voters for Georgescu and for Aur and whatever are drawn by the traditional elements that they were putting forth in a populistic manner, but still they were there. And also by the fact that they were seeing a threat coming from the woke policies that the European Union was said to be promoting. Now, as a political analyst, I don't necessarily buy what people say about European Union and Germany and the US and Vietnam, and I go and check. which is a lesson I learned from being a student at the faculty that you are a student now. You go and check, is the European Union really promoting wokeism? And what is that all about? How does that affect my life economically? Because you're going to have a diploma for an economist. What is that affecting my in terms of political views? So perceptions are very easy to go with voters, are less easy to go with students. I hope. Voters may look at the online channels and may believe what these guys are saying. We, as future professionals, I'm including myself there because I'm a student, I'm a mature student always. As future professionals, need to check, need to do our research. Is that guy actually saying the truth? So yes, voters were drawn. And the next question is, what is right and wrong? Where do I stand? How do I deal with this from an international economics perspective, which you are studying? Voting for this guy is a good thing, considering Romania's position. And there is a question, a very simple question to ask. Is Russia providing what the European Union is providing in terms of economics? It comes down to this. Now you have a research homework to do. The challenge of the Romanian Gateway and its leadership, I have no idea really. That's for a good speech for a politician though. I bet that the politicians would be very good at providing answers for that one. As for Romania being a receiver, Romania pushed for that paper on the European Commission website to be published. So it is an effort of the Romanian diplomacy that the Black Sea actually has a strategy paper in the EU. Whether that calls us a leader or not, I say yes. Others may say no. But it is a success that we do have a Black Sea strategy on the European Union website, and we have other European Union states understanding the importance of the Black Sea. That's important.
To conclude, maybe a last word by Sylvie and then by Arthur. No, it's okay. Sylvie, maybe you answer one of the questions, or you just conclude, or you just say goodbye, as you want.
Yes, I maybe say goodbye, and well, it was a pleasure to discuss about that important issues and really important for our future. And we open, I think, a lot of doors, and I'm not sure we close them, and maybe we will come back to discuss that one another day. And thank you very much for your participation.
Being here, yes, thank you.
Being here. Yes.
Maybe Arthur, a conclusion, maybe can I ask you a question that will be, we discuss here a bit like, between French, Romanian, European, and so on. How do you see from your perspective, your point of view, this debate? Do you think we are in another planet? Do you think we are grounded in the real world, or do you think we are just crazy?
I think that the war is global. It is the moderation of globalization. If you must to analyze the war of the quiz beyond Europe. The discussion on Romania, Europe, okay, but the world, Africa, in the discussion. It is my point of view, and I think that today Europe must to become a power because USA is, with Trump is not peut plus faire confiance.
Reliable
confident, yes, and Africa hope a good relation win-win with Europe in the world. Okay.
Merci d'avoir essayé. Thank you for trying. I would like to thank very much Sylvie Matelly from Institut Jacques Delors, Antonia Colibasanu, Madame Colibasanu by the name, from Romania, SNSPA and New Strategy Forum, and Arthur Banga from Fidemo. Les débats, les dialogues européens face à la guerre, dialogue européen, the European dialogue are still in motion, if I can say that. Some students will have some exchanges now, but it's like a specific event. We are back at 8 p.m. at the French Institute, Strada. Is it Strada? No, Dacia. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for this complicated debate in a nice way, and see you later tonight for other panels and discussion, and tomorrow. Bye bye. Thanks.